Guys, got another episode of Almost in Agreement for y'all. Today I've got Dan Davis. He's an old friend. We've known each other for 15, 18 years, somewhere in there. On and off, we made rock and roll together at one point in time, as well as we were friends across the bar in a previous employment life and whatnot. And Dan recently put his hat in the ring for City Race, and as the world turns, decided it was not the best option for him and has stepped out of that role, but he's continued to be active in what's going on locally in politics. We're talking about some of that stuff as well as some of how well we know each other and other random isms and whatnot. We're almost in agreement at gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. You can also go to our website. It's almostinagreement.com. On there you can see every episode available. Or your favorite podcast providers, another place you can go get us. And while you're at any of those places, send a like to share any of those things to help us grow the brand, get some more out there. There's a lot going on here in Knoxville, and in my opinion, the media as it sits is not doing a very good job of covering it, at least not very, what's the big word? Not biasly. That's a word I just made up, but you get the intent. All right, here we go. Dan Davis, everybody. Hey, Dan, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, what's going on, man?
Oh, you know, we're doing things and whatnots. So I don't know. Let's go back in time. So just because it happened to happen, I happened to have Will on last weekend, which is like the first time I talked to Will in 15 years.
Get back there. All right.
Get a little closer on the microphone.
All right.
And so
We're going back that far, huh?
yeah, and so like and I mentioned to him that you and I were talking and trying to figure out a schedule to do this too. There was it was like a week and a half that you were in the band with us, something like that, 2 weeks.
I think it was technically about 6 weeks, but I always say it was about 10 minutes. I was, basically live support the Broken Glass, but I didn't actually play on it. And Will said that we're going to put you on the credits on that. I was like, no. No.
Yeah, because that was the end of. I mean, that was my last bit with them anyway. So
Really?
yeah, I did Bath Broken Glass. We finished.
Oh, yeah, because Steven moved to drums.
Right.
Yeah.
He was always technically a better drummer than me anyway.
You were a great drummer, man.
It was loud.
You were a good drummer.
At least theory-wise, music theory and that part of it wise, he was superior for sure. But whatever. That wasn't why I left, or he had nothing to do with it. It was. I think Will put it really well. If you got a chance to listen to that show, We'll put it really well for his and my relationship and musically and whatever like that. Just some things finish. That's what happens. And that was a proper time for us to finish. At the time, it sucked, but
yeah, he's working at a rehab center or something.
I have no idea what he's doing for the day job. I mean, he's all I hear from him is writing credits for. He does like film scores and stuff a lot now too.
Well, I mean, good for him.
So, yeah, that's what.
Proud of you, Will.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're watching.
He might be, but I don't know. So, like we joked and trying to set this up because originally we set this up because you were a candidate for District 4, and I've set forth to try to talk to as many District 4 and all the city candidates possible. And as you explained it to me, it's pretty simple. Is Clinaris, who has a little bit more, what's the word? What's a good word for that? Had a much better first couple weeks of fundraising to where it made it.
He has what we might call largesse.
Okay.
Right? Like he's well known. He owns a lot of businesses. He's got like 7 restaurants, I think. His house is always like one of those that you go on the Knoxville tour of homes or whatever it's called, and ooh and ah at it. I mean, he's extremely successful businessman.
Right. And so it was. I don't know. I guess so. Like, what's the thought process on that? So just because he can raise more money, you decided that it was not in your best interest to stick with it?
Well, I mean, look. Okay. First, let me go back a little bit, because I'm sure a lot of your viewers don't really know who in the world I am.
Fair enough.
Right? Because I've been distinctly on the right.
Right.
Right. And so here's who Dan Davis is and why you should care. I'm a local Knoxville guy. Dad's a cop, mom's a nurse, so on and so forth. But I jumped into the city council race in 2017 in District 4. And that was the one where Amelia Parker and Harry Tyndall had the tie.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Were you around for that?
Not. I was here, but I wasn't paying attention then.
All right. So, first time ever happened in the history of Knoxville election politics, in 200-something years. They both got 488 votes, right? Now, Lauren Ryder ended up winning the seat, and in the primary, she turned out almost 900 votes, which is unheard of. I mean, God almighty, good job, Lauren.
Right.
Right? But the reason that I call myself the political ghost because people don't know who I am, but my effects are felt. And I say that because I caused that tie.
Right.
Right? I pulled off enough votes from Harry Tyndall that he ended up tying with Amelia Parker. And Harry is a Democrat. Harry is, I don't know if the word's moderate or what, but he's, an establishment Democrat. And there were a lot of Republicans that would have voted for him if I hadn't showed up.
Right.
And when they went and they had to have the special tie-breaking meeting of the city council, I went and I sat in the front row. I felt like I ought to be there since I felt like I caused it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Since I threw the wrench in the works, I felt like I ought to be there. So I was sitting there.
Or they got to face they got to face their accuser, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, well, yes. Devil's advocate.
Yeah.
So I was sitting there and I was watching the whole thing go down, and Amelia Parker stood up and basically said to the city council, "Hey, y'all have to break this tie, but I'm here to tell you, please vote for me. And you know me because I've come and been very mean to you many, many times in city council meetings."
Right.
Right? So not a great way to win friends. And they all voted for Harry, and as we were walking out afterwards, and Harry's a great guy. Right? I have no problem with this guy personally. I don't have any problem with anybody politically, personally. Right? It's politics. It's a game. Right? Mm-hmm. It's a very important game, but it's a game. As I was walking out, I asked him, I said, "I think I caused this." And he said, "I know you did."
Right.
Right? So that's sort of my pedigree. But the reason that I jumped in this time and why I dropped out is, well, I jumped in because I was asked to. And I dropped out because, people act like really incredulous that money, that doesn't matter. It's really about the message and the people and so on. You're not going to reach those people without that money. Right. It's just not going to happen.
It could be the best message ever. If nobody hears it, it might as well not be a message. Right.
Exactly.
All right. Okay. That makes sense. I get it. I don't know, and for me, because, it's literally been, at this point, a 16-month crash course in politics, period, in governance. Because, I think about it, initially, we got into it because we got started with the coronavirus pandemic stuff. We literally started, the week after the first round of shutdown started happening and all that kind of stuff, where it was we don't know, kids are home. Kids are out of school.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought it had been going on longer.
No, we started in February, March of 2000, so somewhere in there. And so, it's just me and a couple buddies, and we talk about all sorts of random stuff. And it's one of the things, we've known each other for a long time, and one of these things we always argue about is every time we get into politics, we always talk national politics because we don't know local politics. We don't know who's the players, what's going on, all that kind of stuff. And so Gina Oster was the real linchpin in our story, is that we had a conversation. We're we're in the middle of campaign cycle right now. Let's find out who these people are. Let's talk to them. And so I started emailing people, and the other guys in the show are "There's nobody's going to answer you. Nobody's going to want to be on your show, or whatever." And I was I don't care. I want to do it, so I'm going to do it. And
that's completely wrong. Anybody that says that, and it's not just that I'm a media whore, because I'm a media whore, right? You want to give me attention, I'll show up anywhere, right? But you have to go down to the lowest level.
Right.
Not to say that y'all are the lowest level.
Well, and for me, too, and the Gina Manis primary and the Virginia Couch, for that matter, that is my district as well. So not only am I a trying to be sort of media thing, but I'm also an actual constituent of these actual people. But anyway, Gina came on and did the show, and it was really fun and interesting. And really what it was all about was, like, we finished the show, and we were talking about how important local politics is, and we started talking about who's running these races. And we're like, I don't know. And so I started looking people up. And so I look up that Gina Manis one, and at the time, there was literally, on Gina, the best I could find was Gina's Facebook page, Gina's website, and like a 200-word District 18 snapshot on WVLT. That was it. It's like, well, how am I supposed to make an informed decision about these people if this is the entirety of the catalog I get to look at? You know, and especially as that Oster-Manis debacle rolled out, you know, like, the argument's good from the state SEC as far as Eddie's not so Republicanist-ness. I get it now, but at the time it didn't sell to me because I barely knew anything. I mean, we knew a little bit about Eddie just because his mayoral run the year before, but for the most part, I didn't know anything about any of these candidates, and I'm supposed to go vote for them. It's like, that's not how this is supposed to work. We're supposed to know who these people are, what they're after, what they're doing, blah, 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 blah. You know, and it shouldn't necessarily matter what the R or the D is that gives a framework, but it should go to the individual past the party. But we all, I mean, really...
I disagree.
But in local politics, at least, it seems like it's really just the RD that you're voting for because you don't get to know these candidates. There's not a lot of attention on them, and what is very superficial, very small window. You know, we were always going to be long format anyway. That was what we were going to do. But especially when you get to these people, like, I mean, how many times have you heard, I don't know, Amelia Parker, because you said her name a couple times in there, or Lauren Ryder for that matter, for more than a 15-second, 30-second soundbite? You know, but
unless you go to the city council meetings, you won't.
Right, and even then, it's like 15, 20 seconds because it's a back and forth conversation on their end. But, you know, I mean, yeah, but even in a 3-hour meeting, you might get 5 minutes of talk out of a specific counselor. But that's after they're in the seat at that point. You know, I'm more concerned than beforehand. But the more I dig into it, the more I'm really just trying to understand how the governance works around here and dealing with the side effect that is the politics. Because, like, one of my big things, and everybody's heard me talk about it all the time, like, I'm hip to the idea of painting a picture of what Metro Knoxville would look like. I don't know that I'm on it should or shouldn't be, but I'm on having a real conversation about how we as a community think whether we think a metro government would be better for us and how it would look if we did it. And the answer I get is it might be okay, but it's never going to happen with the two bodies as they sit. One's not going to agree with the other to make it happen. So it's going to either take some extraordinary measure like me making it a ballot item and getting it pulled off, or like the city going bankrupt and having to fold into the county. Those are the terms as I understand it, because of the politics of it. Not because whether it's not better for me or you as constituents and citizens of this place. It's because the politics aren't going to allow it. And it's like, well, I don't care about the politics. I want to know which type and form and placement of government is going to work better for me and my neighbors, not for the city councilors and the county commissioners. That's my stance on it. And so that's what I mean by, like, I'm learning that the politics is, like, trying to understand the governance is dealing with the politics. And I understand that, bottom line, they're going to have to, they are the product of the other. They exist. They cannot exist in a vacuum. One has to exist for the other, and the other has to exist for the first. But, anyway, you disagreed with, you think the party is party over person?
I think that people who, like, my dad was what he's still alive, but we used to call him mugwump, which is an East Tennessee term for a person that does not vote for the party, they vote for the candidate. Right? I just think at this point, and you can blame Facebook, you can blame Fox News, you can blame CNN, but there used to be a saying, all politics is local. Bullshit. Nowadays, all politics is national.
I agree. Right? I mean, the quite, like, we had in the bigger show earlier today, like, we had a whole segment where we were talking about, like, one of the things to me is, I think, I don't know how you even pretend to pull it off, and that was kind of the argument with one of the other guys. It's just never going to happen. But we need to have a real conversation about what our different levels of government are supposed to do, what we want them to do. Because to me, yeah, local. Like, you know, we were talking in the pre-show. Like, you know, I consider myself more of a libertarian than anything else. And you were talking about how the party's moving towards this anarcho-capitalist.
The libertarian movement in general.
Right,
yeah.
which I got my feelings that come and go depending on the day of the week and what the topic is, on whether I agree with the majority of that or not. But I think for me, one of the things, I don't know if this is just makes me disingenuous or whatever, but on the federal level and even a good chunk of the state level, I'd prefer to move way that way. And then we can have the conversation about whether I want my local government to be a little bit more hands-on. I'm down. Like, I could get behind the premise of having my local government be a little bit larger, more hands-on, more active, if we're taking the federal and state government out of the same activities.
Well, I like the idea of like, you're basically describing devolution, right? I like the I think that I'm pronouncing that right. I like the idea of more power being located the closer to you.
Right.
Right. Which is the original structure of the government of the United States.
Right.
But I don't like the fact that we have people on the and I think everybody agrees with me on this, no matter, left, right, whatever. Nobody likes the fact that we just have people that, all right, Matt Gaetz, you got famous. Cool. You go on Fox News a bunch. Cool. Who cares?
Right.
Right? You're not doing anything, and you're not stopping anything from being done.
Right.
Right? You're just posing for a camera, which is awesome. I get it. Right?
I mean, for you, or not for you, but for him, sure.
Yeah. Well,
and for
awesome
the people,
for me right now.
Right, and well, for the people that make money off of him,
yeah,
like for the Fox News or the Facebook or whatever, the different things that how media gets paid, they like him because they're making money off of his outrageousness or whatever it is. That's the
yeah, and
that is the key word of the day. But I mean, we could go
lots
through
of outrageousness with that guy. Yeah.
Right. I mean, like, Trump was probably the best thing that ever happened to big news.
Oh God, yeah.
Like you couldn't go you couldn't even finish the 24-hour news cycle before he did something new that they could get outraged about.
Do you remember that brief moment where they all liked him? Like when he came down the escalator.
Oh yeah.
And he gave this like crazy announcement. This is, they're bringing drugs. They're rapists. I love the way he said that. Right? Not that I agree or disagree, but it was funny. And then, like, he was on, like, Jimmy Kimmel and, like, Jimmy Fallon and stuff. And they loved this guy.
Right.
And, like, as soon as he started to be, like, a serious candidate.
Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah. Exactly. Like, yeah, I mean, but because Jimmy Fallon was probably, I think, one of the last ones. And then, like, there was a bunch of big shitstorm about Jimmy Fallon was nice to him. Like, that like, Jimmy Fallon was, like, I think as they taped that one was when the switch flipped, and they'd already finished taping it, so they aired it, and it's like, oh shit, I was supposed to be mean to him. It's too late now.
But he was totally just
they were having good times, because like that stupid ass, can I touch your hair? Like it was funny. Yeah. It was a good show.
It was.
Yeah. And so like that part of the my anarcho capitalist podcast I listen to, they call that the cathedral part of it. Puts it puts the federal government, big media, big business, kind of all as its own thing, dealing with us regular Joes on the side, and I think that's a good example of it, of how to describe the cathedral when people ask me, and it's like I always kind of fumble through it, but it's like, Fox News or CNN, they don't really give a shit A or B about this Gatz character. They just care that people tune in for them to talk about him, whichever version of how they're talking about him is.
Yeah.
And so it's not about informing me or you about anything really important about what's going on in the world. It's just, hey, people are watching this so I can sell more ads. Which, I mean, I can't lie. I'm trying the same way, but I'm too lazy to put forth effort to put some scheme together to do it. I just like to talk to interesting people that know more about what's going on than I do so that I can learn. Like, my whole sales pitch is, I'm an idiot, and I know it. And I'm pretty sure I've got a lot of idiot neighbors. And they may not realize it and may like to pretend, but if any of my idiot neighbors want to get a little bit better understanding of what's going on, I feel like I'm a pretty decent source of that, because I feel like I ask the same questions as a normal person would ask, that doesn't have the opportunity, chance, or I don't know, low enough self-esteem to go ahead and do it. That's really my thought process on the show. It's like,
so what do you want to know?
I don't know what's going on with. I don't mean like this city race thing. That's as it's kind of panning out. I kind of like. I'm kind of humored by this kind of Knoxville squad that's developing. That's what I've termed it. That's what it is. We have this progressive subset of the local left.
Yeah.
That is coalescing into this kind of thing, and so they're all three candidates are kind of pushing each other, trying to get all three pushed through to get rid of some of the not progressive enough city councilors that we have, and so I think that's super interesting. Like I really like.
So who's in this? Who's the squad?
I'd say it's Harper, Hayes, and McMahon.
Oh, okay. So the city council movement,
right?
Okay.
Is that what they call themselves? I made up my own term for them.
Yeah. Okay. So the city council movement. All right. The bane. Bane of my existence.
But and then we go back into where we kind of reconnected when I was at that GOP restructured meeting. And watching that weird shit show, for me at least. I mean, for you that are part of the party and the party and have been to things like this before, it's really foreign to somebody who's never seen it before.
Yeah,
that
was a fun convention.
I got barked at for crossing a line on the floor that I didn't pay attention to was there. Like, I'm not a party member, obviously, so there's a certain section of the room I wasn't allowed in, which is normal. The Democrats do it too.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah,
That's
so
funny.
if you and I were just walking next to each other walking towards the stage, I would have gotten stopped because I didn't have the right wristband. Which I thought was also funny, whether they did it on purpose or not. You got a red wristband. The other people got a blue wristband.
Yeah, well, I was a candidate.
Right. But you got a red. But I just thought it was funny they had red and blue wristbands, and all the
okay.
official Republicans got red wristbands.
That's funny.
Yeah, and I got a blue one, and so that was kind of fun. But for those people that aren't that active in it, that want to understand more, but don't necessarily want to go down the party road with it, but just want to understand who their candidates are and what the parties are doing, even if they don't want to be in on them. That's what I'm trying. That's the gap I'm trying to fill.
Local politics should be partisan. Okay, one of the things that I think messes up people like you and your neighbors and stuff who don't want to go down the party path and want to think that politics is bigger than party, is that, okay, we say that these are nonpartisan races.
They're not.
Bullshit.
Right. They're not. The only thing nonpartisan about it is a Republican doesn't automatically make it to the general, or a Democrat doesn't automatically make it to the general.
Well, in the city of Knoxville, a Republican never makes it to the general.
I'm just saying, but the point being though is that where a partisan election, even if it's a Senate seat 8 for the state, which is me, which you had Massey and Jane George. And Jane George is fairly well funded considering she's District 8 and it's not a very strong district for Democrats around here.
This person.
Anyway, she came on. She was fun. She was really interesting to talk to. But so she didn't have anybody to primary and that stuff. She automatically was on the general. And that's the partisan part, is that a Democrat will be on this ticket regardless, as long as one runs. Where in this nonpartisan city race, there is no automatic seat in the general ballot.
Especially today when you have all politics being national. Right. And they really are. The idea of having a nonpartisan local election is such bullshit. Right? You want some more?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, there you go. For you viewers at home.
This episode is not brought to you.
Seth asked what I would like to have on hand to drink, and I said Bullet Rye. And I was sort of joking, but he showed up with it, and it is very good whiskey.
I try to be a decent host here.
So anyway,
that's not. I mean, I'm generally not a sipping whiskey kind of guy, but I'm not mad at that.
That's pretty good. But what I was saying is the idea of keeping local elections nonpartisan is really it's a way without saying it. But it's a way to basically keep the masses out, right? And let the guys that go to the Republican club meetings and the Democrat club meetings and that sort of thing really maintain the power structure.
How so? Please. I mean, I've heard this before, and I kind of started to wrap my head around it, but I'm still struggling.
Okay, I've never thought this through, so I might go and ah a lot. The way that it works is a bunch of people who go to And this is one place where the city council movement has been extremely effective. They've made basically a third path, right?
Right.
But the people that run this city, and especially the county, but we're talking about the city, they're the ones that you will find at a Shoney's in the back room on Thursday nights at 7 o'clock 1 week out of the month.
Right.
Right? There is so much politics that happens at Shoney's in this city. And when you tell people that it's a nonpartisan thing, especially when you have like the local media who just does such a shit job.
Don't disagree.
Of covering these things, right? So, okay, for the normal person, if they even vote in city elections, that's the other thing. The people that actually vote in city elections, they're the ones that go to Shoney's at 7 o'clock on Thursdays.
That was what was funny because I went to your party reorganizing thing, and a couple weeks later I was talking to Matt Shears about something different, and and then I had Chris Davis in from the election commission. We were starting to talk about the city races. And so, like, I had all these different things kind of flowing through my head. And, like, after I get off with Chris Davis, I'm thinking to myself, it's like, so the Republicans need to drive turnout to win a city race. Mm-hmm. And I was like, and so I messaged Brian Hornback. I was like, hey, this makes more sense.
Love that guy.
I was like, this makes more sense if you run this idea across than me. But here's the thought I had. Tell me what you think. And then he ended up writing a piece about it and tagged the show in it. And I appreciate that, Brian. And you need to come on the show at some point too. But
yes, you do, Brian.
And so Ryan or Brian?
Brian.
What did I say?
You say Brian.
Oh, I just lost myself in there. Anyway, so like that whole premise of having the narrative at least is that Republicans don't like voter turnout because that's not good for them. And so I thought it was a fun story to push it backwards, is that the Republicans need to push turnout to win this election.
And that's the effort that's going on right now with the city races. There are a lot of Republicans in the city, and they don't ever come out to vote except for president.
Right.
Right.
Well, I mean, that's the thing, like, because the demographics of city and county, because this is something I argue with Matt Shears about all the time, is because he always talks about how the city is super blue and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, it doesn't make sense. Population-wise, we were like 400 and something in the county, 180 of that are in the city. So why is it that the majority of county races are all won by Republicans, and then the cities aren't? The populations per district aren't equal per se, but the populations are dividable at least, and so it should be more equitable. If the two different bodies are that much different, then the results should be more middle ground.
Okay, the Republicans, the local party, and this is changing now that we have a new chairman, who is, I mean, I'm a big fan. Who is very energetic and young and things like that. But previously, the Republican Party had just written off the city. I remember Michelle Carringer. She was my county commissioner, right? I live in Fountain City. She is my county commissioner. And it got announced on like a Friday, it was right before the filing deadline.
Right.
She announced that she was not going to be a county commissioner anymore, and she was going to run for Bill Dunn's seat in the state house. And it seemed like, I mean, why would you do that? Because it was like the day before.
Right. No way anybody's going to pick up a petition and get it turned in time. Right.
So this one guy did, Grant Rosenberg.
Mm-hmm.
And before I found out that he was running, I was considering jumping into that race. So anyway, Grant, he lost to Courtney Durrett, who I actually went to like elementary school with.
I had them both on the show. They were fun.
Courtney's she's a fun girl.
And the thing about to them, if it was a nonpartisan race, air quotes, if I wasn't told going in who's what, I don't know if I would have picked it up in conversation.
I know.
From either one of them. Neither one of them had a strong party feel to them by any way, shape, or form.
Courtney, I like Courtney. Like I said, she probably does not know this, but there was a point when we were in elementary school together that my mother was telling me that someday you should marry. Her name was Courtney Roberts at the time, but sorry, Mom. I'm happy where I'm at. Anyway, so Grant Rosenberg, he comes in, he runs that race, and he fails. And I was talking to Randy Pace later, and I was telling him about how I thought, maybe, I wanted to jump in, but then I saw Grant Rosenberg, and he's got 1,000 degrees from, Harvard, Yale, Columbia, and so on. He's worked with this man that rules the world, that other woman that rules the world.
Right, he worked for the city for a long time.
He had such a good pedigree.
Right.
And there was no way that I was... And that's the thing with my political career. I'm really passionate, but I'm just not that connected.
Right.
And so I was talking to Randy about this and how I thought about it, and I then decided not to. And he basically, I am paraphrasing here, he basically told me that I should have, and that Grant was pretty much foisted upon them because they didn't have anybody else.
Right.
And he told me that the Republican Party had written off that county commission district a long time ago.
Right.
They just weren't even bothering.
Right.
Right. So it is about driving turnout, but it's not only about driving turnout, it's about inspiring all these Republicans that live within the city limits to realize that they have an actual shot.
Right.
Right?
Right. It's not a given.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. We've all just assumed that Knoxville is San Francisco East, which I got mocked for saying that in the Knoxville News Sentinel, and they were not very nice to me, and so on. But I mean, we're just assuming that it's gone completely blue, completely left, and now with the city council movement ascendant, now you've got SEMA, now you've got Amelia on there, David Hayes. Well, I mean, he's probably going to win that race.
Okay.
In South Knoxville. I think so. I mean, other people don't think so, but I do. Just because he has so much wind at his back.
Yeah.
And that dude is dangerous.
And he was close in the when Tommy took the seat from Welch, when Welch got tapped for city finance officer or whatever it was. Apparently that was a pretty close race in the appointment part as well. Between the two of them.
I did not follow the appointment procedure. I know when the last city council races happened, which was when Hubert Smith ran, which I haven't heard from him in a while. Hubert Smith, everybody goes and kisses his ass. He's a racist. Anyway, nobody will say that out loud, but I just did. So David Hayes was running for city council last time, so 2 years ago, 2019. The Republican Party held a thing at the Crown Plaza, a candidate forum, right, of every district, right? So all of them were there. And we were able to, us in the audience, we were able to write questions and hand them in, right? So I went and I wrote this question, and And this actually, you can look this up. If you want to dig around enough, you can find it. There is a police record about it. I asked a question for David Hayes. Excuse me. About how can you justify the fact that when Vice President Mike Pence came to speak at the downtown convention center, there was an old guy walking around outside with a MAGA hat on, and David Hayes threw his ass out into traffic in front of a moving car. Right?
Right.
So, I told you I was going to be the most hated man in town.
I mean, that's good for my ratings, so
yeah, well,
how about it?
You are Fox News. So anyway, I wrote this question down, like, how can you justify this? Right? This is political violence. This is terrorism. And it was just because this old guy was what is now called a Trump supporter.
Right.
Right? Dumb term. And so I handed it in to the person that was running the thing. I love you, Randy Pace. This is Randy Pace. And the way that it was asked to him was, it seems like you might have had a run-in with the police sometime. Can you tell me about that? And then David Hayes made this. He didn't make it up. I mean, I'm sure it's happened because he's been arrested a whole lot of times. He started telling this story about like some poor homeless man and police were messing with him, and David Hayes ran over and was like Superman and was like, "You stop picking on the poor." Right? Totally spun it around.
Right.
Right. Told a completely different story. I don't even know what the hell the question was anymore, but here, we're talking about the ascendancy of the left and the right not actually doing anything.
Right. We're talking about the whatever their term for what I'm calling the city squad.
It's a city council movement. It's not a loose thing. It's it's a political party is what it is.
Right.
Okay. When I ran in 2017, that was the first year of the city council movement, and they sent out flyers, and they had on the flyer a slate of candidates, and they were all on the same flyer, and they all had the same bullet points. And it said, they sent it citywide. They said, if you live in District 4, vote for whoever it was. In District 3, vote for SEMA. If you live at District 4 is Amelia Parker. If you live in District, there were several different ones. And then they came back 2 years later, and they did the same thing.
Right.
And they had Charles Albawi, I think.
Uh-huh. I've had him on the show.
And
he's a District 6, I think.
Yeah, he's like, I want to say Montgomery Village. I don't know.
We were talking baseball stadiums when he was on. That was all.
Okay. We can talk about that too.
He's part of the Nats movement.
I don't know what that is.
We can talk about it later.
But yeah, it's supposed to be a nonpartisan race, but this was obviously a political party that is formed.
Right.
Right. They behave like a political party. They are a political party. They all have the same points. They're on the same mailers. It's a slate of candidates. Why this is allowed when people are given such pushback to Chairman Herrera for trying to get the Republican Party, like capital R, capital P, Republican Party, involved in city politics. People like Sandra Clark, Betty Bean, they're giving him such pushback for trying to do this. But yet they're like, Amelia Parker, David Hayes, woo!
Well, yeah. Yeah, I didn't know the city council movement was an official thing.
Well, I mean, I don't know what you mean by official, but I mean it's a thing.
Right.
It's a thing. They have
and like you said, functionally, if it's
4 years now, they've had a Facebook thing.
If they function like a group, right? If they function like a group that is pushing for particular political ends and the people and parties and persons in play, just like the Republicans and the Democrats do when they do partisan elections, then how if it walks like a duck, right?
Exactly.
Phrase? Yeah.
But nobody's saying it because the city is so eat up with, like I said, the News Sentinel savaged me for saying that Madeline Rajero's policies, and Kincannon's worse, but Madeline Rajero's policies were to drive Knoxville into turning into San Francisco East.
Right.
That's exactly what these people are doing. That's exactly what these people are doing. They are a political party.
Right.
Why are we allowing this? If you're going to pitch such a bitch about
consistent,
at
least be consistency. Like, at least be consistent about it. If
at least, yeah.
Right. If you're gonna look the other way on one, then you need to look the way on the other. It's not right. If not, it comes across as you're a partisan hack as part of the process.
And they're local media here, other than like Steve Hunley at the Knox Focus, right? And I've never met him. I've only read his columns. But like the Compass, the News Sentinel, Knox TN Today, I mean, come on, it's Pravda. It's Pravda.
I don't know what Pravda means, but
Pravda means truth in Russian. It was the one state-sanctioned newspaper in Soviet Russia.
Gotcha. No, I mean, I like, and for me, as an outsider to the party part of it, it's hard not to see it. I mean, the News Sentinel doesn't really fucking matter because they don't run stories anyway about anything important. Whoever got sick on the UT football team is like the fucking lead headline or some shit like that.
Yeah.
And they're not good at it. But I mean that's what
they're not good at it.
But if we're gonna be honest about the game in general, it's like any of the big media players in town, or they don't spend any time on it. And I have to assume that they've got smart enough people in their marketing and whatever department that they go, some little fight with District 4 doesn't sell papers.
Well,
but
the News Sentinel in specifically the News Sentinel, ever since they got bought out by Gannett
and USA Today, they're USA Today with like a half a page of local.
Yeah,
that's really all they are anymore. A full sports section local, but But as far as local news and local politics goes, you're right. It's USA Today, and it goes back to everything's national politics now. That's the way the way we function. And again, like that backs up my point of nobody cares if it doesn't sell papers. So if it doesn't sell them papers, they're not going to run those stories. And so and I think it's natural. And this is one of the things that I think I am struggling with doing this is that I don't have a party, I don't have a side. So when I have a Republican, like when I have a Randy Pace in here, and then a week later I have a Matt Shears in here, well, all the Democrats that are Matt Shears fan might listen to the Matt Shears episode, but they're sure shit not going to listen to the Randy Pace episode or any other thing I do unless it's one of their people.
I don't get Matt Shears. Why is he so upset about Daniel Herrera? Right? Like, why has this little guy who is now our party chairman gotten so under his skin?
Because he has to do his job. He didn't have to do his job before. I mean, it goes into. I mean,
that's a good answer.
And not to speak for him, but my guess on his side of it is that, as a matter of principle, maybe because they didn't feel like they had to anyway, they take city races off. And so now all of a sudden it's. He's like, we were trying to, and maybe it's a rhetoric or maybe it's real. It's like we were trying to honor what was supposed to be the nonpartisanshipness of these races. And so, yes, we have candidates and we will do a little bit, but we don't do any direct support to city race candidates like we do on county and state stuff.
Well, I mean, no direct support.
And so when the opposition is doing exactly the opposite, that pisses some people off. That would be my guess. I mean, Matt Shears probably is high on the list of my favorite people I've met through this.
I've never met him.
Politically speaking, we don't get along on a lot of stuff. And my goal is to turn him into a libertarian. That's what I'm working on. I think he's trying to convert me into the Democratic Party, but I enjoy him as a person. I have a good time talking to him most times. Every time we've had him in here, it's fun. He knows his history. He knows a lot of the ins and outs and stuff, which is nice for me because I don't know shit. But I think. God, where did I start with that? I think there's a. I think there's a lot of movements at play right now that are changing dynamic of what the game is, and I think, especially with the energy and however you want to describe Herrera, that is
energy is a good word.
That is a new dynamic that he didn't have to deal with before, and it changes the game. And I think there's a little bit. I want to see, just for the sake of I told you so's, not necessarily because none of them are mine. I don't live in the city anyway. But I would like to see a Republican steal. It's true. By that fence, like I'm literally. Anyway, Victor Ashe was annexing shit all over the place and skipped me.
Oh, fuck Victor Ashe.
Anyway,
fucking hate that guy.
Anyway, I think the dynamics are changing of what the job is. And
yes.
Especially like you said, too, is that Randy was a much more passive chair, kind of let things go, where Herrera's not going to play that game. He's going to get in and he's going to be excited. And I don't know, for me as an outsider in the game, I think I'm concerned as a constituent. I don't care about the direction your party goes. I care about what your party does to my city and my county. I'm concerned about some of the format and ways that Herrera's doing things. I don't particularly like it. I don't have to like it because I'm not a Republican. But when we'll see as the new candidates that the Republican Party puts out which direction the party's really going under Herrera's leadership. So I can't say anything for sure yet because I haven't, we're not officially in a race now. I mean, like you were a candidate for city races, but when we get into the 22 and the 68 fucking ballot items we're going to have on that election, we'll see some of the new candidates and what they do with them. I mean, I'm a big Manis fan. I like Eddie Manis a lot, and I know the party hates him.
Yeah, we do.
It's fine.
We sure do,
and that's fine. And I get it. I truly get it. I had a serious concern for the first little bit of it. I sat in on that state SEC meeting. Like I got my media pass and listened to that fucking phone call. Which the best part of that whole phone call was somebody's dog's named Trump. Started barking in the middle of the thing. It's like, Trump, shut up. It was hilarious.
That's pretty funny.
But
that's funny.
Yes, it was funny. I sat and I taped the whole thing and I sat and re-listened to the whole thing just to find that and put it in the show when I talked about it, just so whoever from Middle Tennessee got to yell Trump.
Come on, man!
It was funny. It's not a disparaging statement on it, but I mean, sit through that whole thing. My fear in it, in a very layman sense of it, was that the state party didn't like Manis because he was gay, which I don't think is true. Now that I've learned more about it, the state party doesn't like Manis because Manis isn't going to toe the line like the state party wants him to.
Right. I mean, everybody knows he's gay, but I mean,
I didn't know he was gay until after the election.
But that wasn't like I never heard anybody talk about.
I know, but I'm just saying
in any meetings or anything.
My conspiracy theory on it was that was the reasoning behind it. And then as I've come to understand more of the picture and how this thing works, I realized that it's because he's not going to vote the way the party wants him to every time automatically. Maybe that's a better way to say it. Probably for the most part, I would have to go look at his record, but I would say 9 out of 10 he voted with the party.
Look, okay, here's the beef. Okay, they had a meeting, and I'm assuming there was more than one. I mean, Knoxville's not Nashville. Okay, so they had one here, so I'm assuming they had one in other places.
Right, go back to my first Randy episode if anybody wants to listen to it. We talked about it at length the first time.
Okay, about the who can run as a Republican and not. Okay, so I was in that meeting, right? And Scott Golden, the chair of the Tennessee Republican Party, was there explaining things, and Julia Hurley, who is some, I don't know, she used to be a Hooters girl, and now she's like second in command, and they were extremely rude. And as a Republican, I can say this, okay? We keep talking about party politics, and I want to just insert this. One of the reasons that I love being a Republican is that we really are a big tent party. There is, on the Democratic side, and this is fraying a little bit now that you've got like some real progressive, like communist voices like AOC and stuff in there and leading one wing of the party. We Republicans, there's no real ideological unity, right? Democrats traditionally have been much more party disciplined, right? We Republicans, we argue. We really are the big tent party, okay? You can have Mitt Romney in the same party as Jeff Sessions or as Donald Trump.
Right.
Right?
Mitch McConnell.
Anyway, Cocaine Mitch.
My buddy likes to call him Moscow Mitch, but anyway, that's his favorite phrasing for him.
Well, Chinese Communist Party Mitch, but anyway. So we were talking about Eddie Manis. That's really the thing. We can have an argument, but we have to have some kind of party unity. So when you go and you have a guy who's running for Knoxville City Mayor, yet doesn't and says he's a Republican and shows up at the Republican convention that I was at, and like the only thing anybody really knows about this guy is he owns some dry cleaners and he does the honor air thing, right? So he's nice to veterans. There is no way to argue with being nice to veterans,
Right.
right?
I mean, you could try, but
You could try.
Let me rephrase that. People have tried,
Yeah, well,
but it usually doesn't end well for those persons.
you have him showing up and saying that he's a Republican. At the same time, he's worked under Rogero, right? And Rogero is, she's not there anymore, thank God. But she's extremely left and extremely plugged in to the left movement, right? To the communist movement, right? And she always has been. She worked under Cesar Chavez. She was always at the Obama White House. She expected a job in the Hillary Clinton White House. That didn't happen, and we all laughed. You have Eddie Manis, who has been supporting these people and been giving money to these sorts of people and did not vote for Trump. And you know what? We're at a point now where I don't want Mitt Romney in my party. Right? I don't want Liz Cheney in my party. Our party has changed. Our party has changed into a more populist and a more nationalist party. And I'm just going to say it. It's because of President Trump, the greatest president of the modern era, in my opinion. Probably the greatest president since Andrew Jackson, which, I mean, I'm probably going to get death threats when I go home for saying this stuff. Because that's how the left works now.
Right.
They're going to dox me and I'll get fired and my family and children will live in a homeless shelter because I said something that they didn't like.
Okay.
And therefore that's violence. The party has changed. Eddie Manis is... He wasn't ever really one of us. Right?
Okay.
Now,
I mean, okay, so let me try to formulate the question as the insistent outsider in this question or in the conversation. What's in it for me? I got to go vote.
like, I don't even get this question.
What's in it? Like, what is? How does any of this conversation sell to me to vote or not vote for that person? What am I voting for? What is how does that help me being represented by this person or not this person? Because if to put words in your mouth, Oster would have been your preferred candidate, right? And so
Of the two, yes.
And so I'm going to Oster Couch. That's my election. So this, this format of the consistency inside the party, some sort of unity around some sort of ideals. What's in it for me as a voter?
I think your dog's a Democrat.
Is he growling at you again?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Look, I don't actually have a good answer to that, but
because that's my problem with it. I don't mind a party unity. I don't mind a party that has a fixed stance and wants to be very clear about it. Hold on a second.
You all right, buddy?
Took a quick pause there. I need to get some ice for our whiskey and also chase the dog off because apparently he doesn't like Dan for whatever reason.
A lot of people don't.
So those of you guys watching on YouTube, you got some free content there, but you all get free content anyway. But yeah, so what's in it for me? Like, why do I care about how bona fide a candidate is to your party?
Well, the primary reason is because we're gatekeepers, right? Because not just anybody can show up and claim to be part of our team. And when
with the system, with the way the system's built, you have to be on one of the teams, and especially in Tennessee, you have to be on the red team to get any chance to get anywhere. So what's in it for me, who doesn't give a shit about your team?
Okay, first, this goes back to why I think they should be partisan elections, because when I, as whoever I am, right, the proverbial I,
right,
walks into the voting booth and I see an R or a D next to their name, I understand sort of a general idea of their stance on things, right? Because I know what the National Party platform is, and I know that the National Party platform, the state party platform copies that, and so on and so forth. Okay?
Right.
Now, why should you care? I find that question offensive is not the right word, but it ain't about you. Right? Like, well, this is why I find libertarianism to be wrong, because I find it to be morally bankrupt.
Okay, well then,
it's selfish.
Of the recent Pew poll that says like 60% of Americans no longer identify with the two major parties. What about those people? It's not about I use me in the royal sense of what does that matter to me in the royal sense of I'm pretty fucking sure that I'm one of a lot of people that don't really care about your party or the other one for that matter. I don't really care about the rules of the game. I don't care about bona fides. I don't care about any of that. I want people that I think are going to do the right thing for the right situation on whatever comes across their desk. I think the real big better to that, and I'm included in this, and I'm pretty sure everybody is, nobody knows what the fucking job is in the first place. Nobody knows what their fucking right. Nobody knows what the actual fucking job of these people is in the first place. Candidates don't know what the job is when they're asking for the job.
Sometimes they don't know their district.
Sometimes they don't know their district. But and that's and that has been a reoccurring theme on multiple interviews that I've had. Not to call anybody out, but I've had a number of interviews with a number of candidates where they reference things that they have very strong stances on that have nothing to do with the job they're seeking. Like one of the most frustrating ones to me is school board stuff. Is schools. We want to do schools. Schools are important. Schools are important. It's like if you're not running for the fucking school board or a state job, you have nothing to do with it. End of story. I told Matt and Randy last time I talked to both of them, I was like, if any of your candidates running for city, even though you're not doing whatever, if any of them run about anything in schools, I'm going to go apeshit calling them out on how wrong that is.
I wish you would have been around 2 years ago.
Because now this is again, because a good example of the problem is Kincannon pulls the cops out of the schools and it's 15 fucking cops of 140. And people are freaking out like she's taking every single cop out of schools. No, that's not how it fucking works. People don't know what people. And again, that's the genesis of why this is important to me, is that people don't know the authorities, don't know who answers to who, don't know who's doing what. Kincannon's pulling 15 cops out of 89 schools, and there's still 130 something on roster, and people are freaking out. Obviously, because you don't know what the fucking job is. And I think Kincannon was very skillful in her politics of that game because it sells well to the further left, in that she's getting rid of police on any measure, even though she's funding them more than they've ever been before.
But it's also the funding is to.
It's also a budgetary game too. She gets to save money and have 15 more cops on the street instead of putting them in the schools.
You can't say she's funding the police more. I mean, she's funding to have a bunch of people like me and you go in and try to talk people down. That's
Either way,
not
she's
police.
spending whatever. That's the point being is that we as a populace don't know what their job is, don't know what their authorities are, don't know what they can and can't do, don't know how the whole fucking Board of Health mess all fucking year was a big case of nobody knows what we're doing. And the county did it anyway, even though they technically don't have the authority to do what they did. And I still don't know that it's actually been sussed out correctly and legally speaking. But, Lee dropped the state of emergency and all the state requirements and stuff so it doesn't really matter that we didn't fucking do that, right? We just kind of nobody, as far as I understand it, the county commission had no authority to do what they did. But they did it anyway.
Thing?
Yeah.
Honestly, I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to that, even though it was like the biggest thing ever going on. Just because I never gave a shit anyway. I'm not wearing a damn mask. Period.
And that's fine. But
right.
my point, the point of that whole bit is that we have people seeking office, people in office, and most importantly, everybody voting for these people that don't know what they're supposed to be doing, don't know what the actual job is, on multiple levels, both city, county, state, all that stuff, and somehow we expect how. If you're going to run on a platform of some sort of change, we need to fix a thing. And I don't know any better to know that it's fixable or that you have the authority to fix it. But, man, it sounds good. I want to fix this.
You are a natural conservative.
Sure.
You don't even know it.
Okay. So I want less government. So, yes, I'm that pillar of the platform I'm down with, especially on the federal level. I want way fucking less of it. Problem is, nobody does it. With either insignia after their name. Nobody does it. Trump spent more money than any president in history.
True.
And Biden's going to beat him, but...
Our side of the political spectrum has given up on fiscal constraint.
And for me, that's one of the there's like three things on the traditional Republican platform that I am on board with. And that's one of them, and you don't do it, so that doesn't sell well for me.
Fiscal restraint is very far down on my list.
So, okay, so this is a question I've asked Randy, and Randy in his long story fucking way figured out how to not answer my question.
Yeah.
What's the party? That's one of the things. What are the pillars of the party anymore? What is a Republican?
Okay, it's in flux. I'll give you my honest answer, but it's in flux, so this could change. Like I said, President Trump changed our party. Okay? When he first started running, I was one of those people who saw him and his voters as dumb rednecks and wanted to just push the barbarians out of the gate. Right? I suppose now we'd call that a Mitt Romney stance. Or a Liz Cheney stance. Where we stand now, I think, and this is the reason I think that his name is going to be brought up over and over and over again. He's not an aberration. Okay? He was not something that came along and like in The Music Man, boondoggled everybody, right? He wasn't the monorail salesman from the Simpsons episode,
right?
He tapped into something which is innate in human nature, the sense of populism, the sense of nationalism. He even went out in public and said, he used the term. He said, "I am a nationalist," right? I think that is where the Republican Party is going. It's going into a much more philosophically armed to the teeth nationalist sort of identity. Where it used to be all about, you got to keep taxes low. Got to make sure that Walmart can make a whole shit ton of money while fucking over everybody that they employ, right? That's not where we are anymore, right? It's become more of a Teddy Roosevelt Republican. All right? So, okay, that's probably the best way. I've never thought about that, but that's probably the best way to describe that. Back when the Republicans were the progressive party, I think that's where we're headed more into. More of the antitrust, more of the, sticking up for the little guy, government versus giant corporations, as opposed to the state being in bed with giant corporations, which has been the Republican model for a long time.
Okay. So that's one.
Okay. So you want two?
I mean,
that's basically the whole thing.
Okay. All right, I'll have to brew on that for a little bit. I don't know. I don't.
That's how I see things going.
Okay. And I mean, I could see the positives in it. And I think you're right. I think that if nothing else, Trump had an innate ability to see the bigger picture and what was going on around him.
Yes.
I made fun of him plenty, and I'll continue to make fun of him plenty, no doubt. But at no point,
he's orange. It's easy to.
And at no point he would say, he said some stupid things, but at no point I was like, this guy's just an idiot that's bumbling through somehow magically. I never bought that argument for a second. So what is the Mitt Romney and Liz Cheney version of the party?
Well, okay, they're neocons.
Okay,
right. I mean, do I need to explain that? I mean, neocons, the entire neocon thing, neoconservative. It's George W. Bush, right? He was the neocon president,
right?
Right. And where does that philosophy come from? It comes from Trotsky. It comes from former communists who couldn't get a leg up, and they decided that they were going to try to subvert the Republican Party. And they did.
Okay, so how does a nationalist populist party function on a local level? How do we take that ideal and put it into a city council, or a city council candidate, at least? Are we going to have the city of Knoxville fighting against an Amazon?
I would love to see that.
I'm not particularly pleased with it. The more I think about it, I think that's a terrible use of that property.
Yes, I agree. And it's not even, like, there's no jobs. They're not hiring people. I know because I went and looked for a job there, and there's no jobs.
Right.
Right. It's just a distribution center.
Well, even that, my issue with it is that, like retailers, local mom and pop like retailers are going to suffer on a same day under a same day delivery format.
Yeah, and ain't it funny how like Amazon ran driving by West Town Mall on the way out here. Right, I looked over and I got kind of sad.
Oh yeah, the place is falling apart. Although that new Dick's looks pretty cool. Not gonna lie.
You just said Dick looks pretty cool.
I said Dick's plural. Well, possessive rather.
But isn't it funny how Amazon is the thing that killed the malls, which were mostly small businesses, with a few big anchor stores like JCPenney and Sears and things like that. And now they're going around buying up all that property and making them into distribution centers, right? How does that's just a side note? How does a nationalist populist party work on a local level? It does work by the local government opposing Jeff Bezos. It works by the local party actually standing up for the little guy. Right? The left, especially, well, I mean, I'm sure they do it everywhere, but I've seen it here in Knoxville. The left loves to talk about that shit, but they don't actually do it. They don't stick up for anybody, right? They stick up for Regal. They say, we will tear down Baptist Hospital and let you have your headquarters there for $1 or whatever in the hell it was, some tiny amount, and you don't have to pay any taxes for 20 years. And I'm talking about a pilot program, payment in lieu of taxes, and also TIF. tax incentive financing, which I fought against in my last race. Well, 2017.
Right.
But everybody's response to that, on the Republican side, man, I got to tell you, like, I went around to the clubs and I started talking to this stuff, and a lot of them is like crickets. I don't know if they disagreed with me. I don't know if they just didn't know what I was talking about. Right? But I fought against this shit. The left was all about it. All about it. Right? Oh my God, we can have entertainment and amenities and restaurants. All the while you are screwing the taxpayer. And you're fucking over the small business owners.
Right.
Right? That's where we can go. That's where we can go as a party. That's where we can go even, outside the party. That's everybody should agree to that stuff. Like, the idea that government, that the state, and I might get in trouble with my Republican colleagues by saying this, but, we're a big tent party, so we can argue. The idea that the state, as a concept, is hostile to the individual person, hostile to the individual agency, is, I think, an outdated idea. It's the basis of libertarianism, and I think it is morally bankrupt and basically the adult version of the teenager going, I didn't ask to be born.
Okay, so back up a second. The idea of the state. Say that phrase again. I'm trying to.
The idea of, I don't remember exactly how I said it. The idea of the state being hostile to individual agency, individual liberty, so on.
Is the basis for libertarianism. Well, so libertarian is the idea that we don't like that the state is hostile to individual liberties.
You're assuming that the state is hostile to individual liberties in that statement.
Okay.
The state can stick up for you versus Walmart and Jeff Bezos. That's what I'm saying. That's the Teddy Roosevelt model.
Okay, the state can. And I agree with the state. The state could. But if we're going to run off of actual history, since Teddy Roosevelt hasn't done a very good job of it. So if the state's a failure, then why would I want to support the state?
Now there's the rub.
That's my
There's
plan.
There's the rub. You're right. There's the rub.
And it's one of those, like, people always, it's like, well, the government's just people. They're just people. It's like, okay, yeah, they're just people. But the same people that are going to talk about how important and strong the government should be are those same people that, Jeff Bezos and Amazon are an evil corporation. It's like, well, they're just people too. So how do we subdivide these people, and which ones are the good ones and which ones are the evil ones? Dog's coming down.
Hey, dog. Hey, buddy.
You're staying with me. Sit down. My dog doesn't like Dan, everybody, if you haven't picked up on it yet. But
yeah, I don't know
why. And that's my push on it. My push on it is, especially on the national level, decades and decades of failure for the individual in support of big corporations and bigger government. And if that's the model I have to push against, and if libertarianism is the proper push, then that's what I'm going to do.
Look, I don't want a big government, but I call it Bruce Lee government. I want it to be as small as possible to still be effective and totally muscular. Right? Like, I don't want a giant government. but I definitely don't want a very small, impotent, weak, can't do anything, Ayn Rand version of government, right? And the whole Ayn Rand really, that philosophy, that took over the Republican Party back in the Paul Ryan years. And that objectivism, right? And I disagree with that. But I want a government that is no bigger than it needs to be and leaves me alone most of the time, but when needed can strike with like complete accuracy and the most muscular thing you can think of.
All right, I'm trying to think of how to apply that abstraction without it being a military conversation. I mean, help me out. Like, where's the time that is not a military thing where we need the government to strike with the biggest stick, sharpest sword possible?
Break up Facebook. Break up Amazon. Break up Walmart. There are people in our country, and they live in our country, but they really live everywhere, right? They're,
at least as far as the IRS is concerned, sure.
Yeah. That are doing, even if they're not doing a great harm to the public, which I believe Facebook is, and I believe Amazon is, they are amassing so much power, right? And especially in the case of Facebook and Twitter. I know that it's very popular on Republican, on our side of the aisle, to talk about cancel culture and how terrible it is. And it is terrible. It is. These people have made themselves into the arbiters of the public square. And now they are... Twitter banned, whatever the term is, the sitting president of the United States after January 6th. I'm sorry. Well, actually, I'm not sorry. I'll say this to any Republican who asks me. I'll definitely say it to a Democrat. Now, that should be illegal. That is an instance where I think the state should have the power to come in and drop the goddamn hammer.
Okay. I can get on board with that. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I have to think about it for a little bit, but I follow the logic on that. I'll say it at least that way.
We're part of a society. We're not under the rule of the oligarch kings who had got a good idea in college and wrote some code, and now they're just deciding the fate of the whole fucking world.
I agree. There is an issue at play there for sure, and especially even Google is one of the examples. Is Google's interaction in other countries, and they're the Chinese version of Google. It's like, well, Google's amenable to requirements of where they want to work, and I would assume.
While I hate the Chinese Communist Party, I respect the hell out of them for being able to flex their muscles and have like their own internet and not just be run roughshod over by Mark Zuckerberg or whoever's in charge of Google now.
Right. But the flip side of that is they have their own internet and they have their own state media and they have their own whatever, and you don't get to wander the World Wide Web at your freedoms in
You don't
in China.
hear either?
It's true. Different levels of it, but you're right. You're not wrong. Okay. Can't believe I let you like shit on libertarians and I don't really have a good comeback.
Yeah. Well, I've been doing this a long time, man. Look, I was a member of the Libertarian Party back in like 2000. Neil Bortz was the one that converted me, right? And I spent a lot of time on that, and just this has been the progression. I just think it's selfish. And I think I was being selfish. And I think it really probably, my view started to change, first of all, most importantly, when I became a Christian. And secondly, when I had kids. And my worldview expanded further than just my little self. Right?
Right.
Libertarianism is great for my little self. But when I have to think about my role and my duty, and that's what it is, duty, in the broader sense of being a member of society, and that's the macrocosm. The microcosm, of course, is, being a father. It led me to a different place. And like I said, I think that I was just being selfish back then. And it was convenient to be selfish back then because I had a very small worldview.
See, I think mine was the other way, because I think mine, the more interactions I was thrust upon me as a parent with the state is where I've had more issues, is where I push back harder. Issues with the school system, issues with, property rights and stuff like that I've had locally and state level. And stuff like that is what's pushed me that direction. The older I've gotten, the more I've gotten into it. Because I don't, like my great example, and I'm sorry, I know I've told the story 1,000 times on the show. I bought a house in county. I burned stuff in my backyard because I can. I had a septic system, and that's what I wanted. That's part of why I bought this house. My septic system fails. The state of Tennessee requires me to hook up to wastewater. And I'll even grant the premise of it's probably better for the community that I hook up to wastewater, and whatever, fine. But KUB, under the authority of the state and Knox County government, is allowed to charge me a significant sum to hook up to them, to then have the privilege of paying wastewater. And I have no recourse. I have no action. There's nothing I can do. Literally just threw $10,000 at my plumbing because I had no choice. And that was a result of state action. And whether that's selfish of me because I don't want my, because I want to be cheap and I don't want to pay for things I don't think I should have to pay for, okay, then we can call that selfish. But when you put a system in that gives me no options, I'm going to push back on it. I don't like it. It's not just, it's not fair, it's not 1,000 different things. And when it's just, it's just people, it's do the right thing for your neighbor. It's like, it's not the wrong thing for my neighbor. I was fine the way I was a month ago. But my septic system happened to fail 6 months after they put a wastewater line down the street. And since the wastewater line's on the street, I have to, by law, hook up to it. I have a problem with that, philosophically.
I do not.
Okay. And if we're going to call that selfish, then okay. I don't feel like it's selfish by any means at all. There's no harm. There's no damage done prior. Who am I hurting? Who am I hurting with the septic system in my yard?
Holding back is hurting.
Holding back?
Holding back is hurting. And I know, I hate those words coming out of my mouth because I know that the Sean Hannity, Mark Levin, Fox News crowd is going to hear that and say, that's not, collectivism is not communism. Okay? Communism is, of course, collective, but there is no reason for collectivism to be communism.
Okay.
All right? We can all be on the same team, but still be individuals and have our own rights.
Okay. So, at what point did I have individual rights in this scenario that I put forth? I mean, one of the county commissioners told me it's my fault for buying a house.
Really?
Mm-hmm. You bought the house here. When you bought the house, you took the risk of this.
Well, I mean, he's not wrong.
I mean,
do you mind saying who that was?
I don't recall off the top of my head.
Okay.
It was male. That narrows it. That kicks 3 out of the list.
Yeah.
I haven't talked to Daly, and I haven't talked to Schoonmaker. So
have you talked? Oh, I like Schoonmaker.
I haven't had a chance to talk to them yet. So
have you talked to Justin Biggs?
Yep. Haven't talked to him since his new announcement, but
that dude.
I've had Biggs, I've had Ward, I've had Larson, I've had.
That dude is going to be county mayor one day.
He's a fun guy. I like talking to him. Ran into him well, interestingly enough, I ran into him at the same place I ran into the mayor, but not at the same time.
I had a breakfast meeting with Justin Biggs, and I'm a fan. Like I'm not going to say shit about this guy, but I'm a fan. But I had a breakfast meeting with him. It was down at Pete's Coffee Shop, and that's like where all the great and good of Knoxville go to have breakfast every morning, right? And I'd never been there, right? So I walk in, and there's like, you can tell what's happening. There's old guys all wearing suits, huddled in a corner, talking about something over in that corner, over in that corner, over in that corner. So, like, you walk in, you go, oh, shit, this is where government actually happens.
Right.
Right? And I had a meeting with him, and, like, he's a wonderful guy, but that guy is such a political animal, right? That's why I say he's going to be county mayor one day, at least.
Right.
Right? He is, like, it was 90 miles a minute. It was, like, just, and I was just, when I walked out of that meeting, and he ordered the weirdest thing for breakfast. He ordered scrambled eggs with 2 slices of Swiss cheese on the top and a bowl of blueberries on the side.
That is an interesting breakfast choice.
But when I walked
in,
and they knew him, like that was his regular order.
Right.
Right. When I walked out of there, I walked back to the Walnut Street or Market Square parking garage. And the entire walk there, I just went, wow.
Right.
Wow. Like that guy is he's going to do great things.
Okay. So let's go back because I want to understand this.
I don't think you will.
Okay. you might be right, but I want to understand how my want to do on my property as I wish, that isn't harming any of my neighbors by any means, is, I guess, anti-collectivist, for lack of a better way to say it.
Well, I mean, it is anti-collectivist. But why that is not my preferred system? Because the same reason that I have a problem when I drive down Merchants, and what used to be a nice area, I see people all the time fucking passed out on heroin on the sidewalk. No, they're not technically harming me, but they're fucking up my world. Right? It's the same thing. We're all in this together. You have to have some kind of personal responsibility.
Okay, that's libertarian. Personal responsibility.
Okay, well, I don't care what's libertarian or not.
I'm just saying, I'm trying to understand why I'm the selfish one where you're pissed off because you have to see junkies.
Are you not pissed off when you have to see these people?
I'm not particularly happy about it. I generally, I haven't had the pleasure often to deal with it, but I have had to deal with it a time or two
in
my
life.
Come
to Fountain City.
Okay.
Come to Fountain City.
So what's our root cause here? Because there's no restriction on them being junkies on the side of the street? Because I'm pretty sure there is.
Well, the police don't enforce it.
Okay.
The root cause of that? Well, first of all, I will tell you. I live in Fountain City. I live up behind Fountain City Elementary School. Not quite in Grove Park, because that's where, the old money lives. But, we got a foreclosure sort of a little bit down the hill.
Okay.
Right, from Grove Park. It has gone so far downhill. We've been there.
Well, as the county commissioner told me, it's your fault for buying the house.
Well,
you should have seen the future.
You know what? He's not completely wrong, but at the same time, I live in the city, so fuck him. All right?
That's one of the other issues I have in the grand scheme of things, going back to a more realistic...
I have Lauren Ryder to go complain to, who ain't doing shit.
Okay. But I'm just saying, like that is one of the things that in the more basic understanding of how our governments work thing that I don't understand at all. Like, why does a Durrett exist if Ryder does 90% of the work for that set of constituents?
Well, okay, so then you're a fan of like the metro system, like Davidson County has.
I would like to see it. I would like to see a real discussion on it at least.
I'd like to see a real discussion on it.
I don't know that I'm a fan or not, but I don't like, because here's, and again, this has been a long running theme. I would like to see a real conversation about it, what it would look like, how it would work, kind of thing, because everybody I've talked to about it, like in office, hey, what do you guys think about maybe moving this thing metro? Everybody's like, yeah, eventually, not now. Politically, it won't work. That's the answer I get. It's not about whether it's good for me or you as a constituent, whether it's better for us as a community. It's about the politics. That's the answer I get, is the politics are not going to allow it, regardless of whether it's quality for us as residents or not.
I will tell you something, and we're an hour and a half into this conversation.
So nobody's listening, so go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. So I can drop this. There is... Okay, I'm just going to tell you. All right, so when I was approached to run for council this last time, I was approached by Eric Wider. Eric Wider.
Be careful, man. He likes to be secretive.
He sure does. He's like the Lou Pearlman. You know Lou Pearlman? He was the guy that put together the Backstreet Boys, NSYNC, and screwed them all out of money and so on. He's like the Lou Pearlman of local politics. He came down here from Illinois, and he's really injected this whole Yankee, like real cutthroat sort of politics thing that wasn't around here 4 years ago, and definitely not further back than that. But, so he put together the scruffy little city pack, which has amiable or admirable goals. I agree with them. They hate communism. They see that, that we have two members of the city council that are members of the Democratic Socialists of America. That would be Parker and Singh. And they don't like this. And they're
I should have asked you a long time ago, because when Burchett referenced that at the meeting, I was like, I wonder who he's talking about.
Oh, I know exactly what he's talking about. Let me finish this and I'll tell you.
Go ahead.
So anyway, when I had one of my first meetings with Eric Wider, which that flyer, do you remember when Tyler Whetstone got so upset, and so did Victor Ashe, about this mailer that went out that was like mean to Lauren Ryder? And
the recent one?
I don't
know. This year?
Yeah.
The one that had her in her the not very particularly flattering outfit. Yeah.
Yes.
And Kate, I know I get the sense that you're not a big fan, but I appreciate her tactics in owning it, because like the next 3 times she was seen in public, she was in that outfit.
But I've met her a couple of times. She's a nice person.
She was great. She's fun on the show.
I have very deeply held philosophical disagreements with her,
and that's the way it should be.
But when I actually, as a side note, when I ran into her at the racist Hubert Smith's monthly breakfast lunch thing, the Motley Crew, at the Crowne Plaza, she came up to me and she thanked me for telling the media that Harry Tyndall is a registered lobbyist. I don't know why she couldn't tell him. Right? But so
saves her a little political credit, I guess.
Yeah, I guess,
So anyway, Eric, you meet with Eric,
and okay, so we're talking about, what had happened was some people, this pack which he put together, they were looking for candidates to sponsor. Okay, and this is really the story of why I'm not in the race anymore. They were looking for candidates to sponsor, and he had asked around because he's new in town, right? And he's behind that flyer. That's what I was saying. But so he's asking around for candidates because he doesn't know anything. And apparently my name came up a couple of times because I guess in 2017, I failed, but I stuck around to the end.
Right.
Like I even when I knew I was going to lose, I still went out there and made my point and tried to, just influence the conversation, as it were. So anyway, he gets hold of me, and I'm like, yeah, well, yeah. I mean, you're offering me, like, you're saying that I could have actual backing, like actual money, and, like try to do this on a big boy level. Yeah, let's do this. Because, I mean, last time I was my own campaign manager.
Right.
I did everything myself. I designed my own website. I did everything. And we did really well for being one person.
Right.
Right? It was like, the Spartans at Thermopylae. Did they win? They did well. Right?
Better than expected.
Yeah. So anyway, he tells me during this first meeting that I have with him that some of the people that are, and I don't know who by name, but some of the people that are involved with trying to get less openly communist members on city council would like to see the city charter dissolved.
Right, which would be one of the methods to go metro.
It would be one of the methods to go metro, but it has not been brought up, as I've seen, in the media.
No, I haven't heard anything about it.
Right.
Right.
So
I would hope that I would, because that's one of my little things.
This is an exclusive to you, Seth.
Woo!
Like it.
I mean, I think and again, in a nonpartisan, not caring about the party's sort of politics part of it, I'm hard pressed to not assume, and a hard use of the word assume there, that there are redundancies between city and county that cost money. There's obviously the political divide between the two that is failing for some sort of unified moving forward into growth and all the stuff that's going on in and around. I had a planning commissioner on. I had a metro planning commissioner on, Mr. Roth, I believe. Who the feeling that they're getting down at the Metropolitan Planning Commission, which is already a metro piece of our government anyway, but is that the city is trying to lower density in future projects while the county is trying to increase them. And it's like, well, what does that mean if you think about it? And then so it's like, well, what are we pushing forward to with this method? And it's like, whether it's intentional or not, I think this is one of those that the writing's on the wall. There's an inevitability to this process. If the growth continues in Knoxville, Knox County the way it is going, it's going to become a necessity, not just a pipe dream for me. And I think that many people understand that part of it, but for political purposes are avoiding the conversation.
You can see things that are like sort of pointing in that direction. Like it was released the other day. I saw on Knox TN today. I don't remember Sandra Clark or Betty Bean, but that the Glenn Jacobs has, which you're going to need a way bigger chair for that guy whenever he shows up.
I don't know. I bought that for a fat friend of mine, so it should be okay.
Well, I fit in it perfectly. You call
yeah, but you're all spread out and relaxed. Well,
whiskey. But he just announced the other day some new. Well, you better not call it Recode.
Right.
Right. You remember the Recode fight?
Yep.
And I was in the Recode fight. I wasn't publicly in it. That's actually how I got to know Chairman Herrera. And because he was really leading the charge against it. And, I'm not a fan of Recode, but it happened.
Right.
And Commissioner Randy Smith told me a couple years ago, it's coming to the county too.
Yeah.
Right. And so I've been sitting here waiting and watching.
Right, because Jacobs announced Friday in his standard Friday media dump kind of thing that they're looking into forming the commission they're putting it to the procurement office to take offers for whomever to set up the fucking public input for the new 20-30 year plan.
Stakeholders.
Right.
Whenever you see that word, stakeholder, that's a code word. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I was thinking to myself, like, how do I'll be the consultant on this one. I'll just make shit up. What do I got to prove here? I got to go out and talk to the public and see if they want to go, what they want to do in Knoxville for the next 30 years. I'd like to be a part of the conversation. Don't get me wrong.
Well, show up.
Well, I mean, I'm going to put it on. I'm going to put it on my platform and get it out there, and so other people
show up to the meetings.
I'll have to look into it. I'll have to see the schedule. We have to get there. I'm not opposed to it.
I mean, that's
an agenda item for me as I get to retire.
I'm not trying to be a dick, but that's like the main thing that people. I don't know if they don't understand or what, but if you just show up, you are going to be listened to.
Right.
No matter how crazy bullshit you're talking. Right? Like, that was one of the things that when I first ran in 2017, one of the things that struck me was these people that are in the structure, in the power structure of this city, and I'm sure it's the same way other places, they're nerds. Right? And it's like going to the nerds table in the cafeteria in high school. They are just so happy that you showed up.
Right.
Right? You're suddenly the cool guy by just showing up.
Right.
Right? Show up, man.
Okay. I mean, that's not the intent of what I'm after here, but I get what you're saying. I fully understand that, because I think with I guess maybe a better way to put that is my intent is to make it make at least some of the general information more accessible. That's what I'm after. Yeah, so we'll see. That's a moving forward conversation. I don't know. I lost track. What else we got?
Okay, so what I was going to say was I was going to finish that story about like why I was in the race and why I'm not now. And I emailed you and I told you about the money thing.
Right.
Right. So here's what happened. So I was approached. I said yes, got into the race. And later I found out that there was another candidate, also on the right, also being sponsored by, sponsored is not the right word, but being,
supported
philosophically, at least, by this PAC in my district, right? And so I was always thinking, like, why do you want to, like, are you trying to split the vote, right? Which, like, is the whole reason that I stopped, because I don't want to split the vote.
Right.
Right. Like, Jen McMahon that you had a few days ago, I mean, she's just going to split the vote between her and Lauren Ryder.
Right.
I mean...
Right. There's nobody that's going to vote for McMahon.
Sorry.
That I made her say it twice because it's spelled McMahon. But
yeah.
There's nobody that's going to vote for McMahon that, if McMahon wasn't there, wouldn't vote for Ryder instead.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's nobody that's going to be like, oh well, McMahon's not here, so I'm going to vote for Canaris.
So by her running,
right.
If she's going to peel away votes, just like I did to Harry Tyndall,
right.
If she's going to peel away votes from Lauren Ryder, all she's doing is helping Jim Canaris.
Right.
Right.
And the real question is when it's Ryder and Canaris head to head citywide, how does the city respond to a Canaris on the full city race? Because it is likely, my assumption in my amateur local political analyst is, my assumption is you're exactly correct. It's because we have the three in the race, and it's going to come. The primary is going to kick out McMahon, and then
probably, yeah.
And then in the weirdness, and I go back and forth on how I feel about this city race system. It's kind of weird. I think that you only get to primary your own district, but then
it's a pain in the ass for candidates. I tell you that.
And then your general citywide.
Yeah.
Because SEMA got in there. I mean, that's how SEMA got in.
And that really surprised everybody.
Right, because in the primary, SEMA barely squeaked into second.
But she was running against James Corcoran, and he's...
Right, but I'm just saying, but in the district, Corcoran owned that district, but he just didn't have a chance in the city. Citywide. I think it's just that I don't know if I'd like it or not. It's weird. It's weird to try to rationalize.
So... All right, so we were talking about
why you actually stepped out.
and so on.
Clinaris comes in. You didn't realize Clinaris was there. You're kind of confused on why some of the people that asked you to run are the same people that are supporting this other person.
Yes. So, why would you want to split the vote?
Right.
And I talked to a lot of people that said the same thing, right? A lot of like county commissioners and no city council people because they're all lefties. So it came time to start raising money, right? And this goes back to what we were talking about before. Everybody hates this. All candidates hate this. Except Jim Clinaris.
Except for the candidates that
are really fucking good at it.
Right. That it comes easy to. Right.
So I turned in my first financial report, and I mean, I knew we weren't doing good with money, but we did better than last time.
Right.
And I'm like a lot of people. I absolutely hate asking you for money.
Right.
Right? I mean, to me, that doesn't make me any different than a panhandler. Right? I understand why you need money in politics, but I, and most people, absolutely hate doing it. So I was very bad at it. We raised, when I say we, I mean I, raised just under $1,500, right? And I was like, well, that's not good, but it's better than last time.
Right.
So his financial disclosure comes out, and it's $33,000. Right. $33,000.
That's it. That is significant.
That is enough to run the entire race, and this is just for the first reporting period.
Yeah.
Right? That is unprecedented.
Right.
Right? Okay, so there's two things behind that. First, he knows everybody. Right? Like, when my family went to a dare park and had some pictures taken for, like, to launch a website and stuff, the photographer, who, I have no idea how she would know this person, she said, Jim Clinaris, you're running against Jim Clinaris? Oh, God, he knows everybody. Oh, he's going to kick your ass.
It's not very good sales there.
No.
Photographer, geez.
No. But she wasn't wrong.
Right.
And second thing is, he was able to raise so much money. I hate raising money. It all depends on money. And that is why I was getting like, there were some people that really, really appreciated my candidacy. And they were ideologues.
Right.
Right. And I'm an ideologue. I'm an idealist as far as it goes to politics. But ideologues love to say, I'll support you and put a sign in your yard. They don't like to give you money.
Right.
And that is what it comes down to.
Right. If you can't raise the money, you can't give them a sign to put in their yard.
Well, that's true.
I mean, and that's one of the, again, as much as I'm maybe ankle deep in this pit of trying to understand everything that's going on, like, I get it too. Like, I understand that there's the need for money in the system.
We shouldn't have this. There should be federally for federal and state for state and so on, government funded election processes.
Right.
We shouldn't have to go out and beg for shekels.
Right. And I think that's probably one of the one of those things that didn't happen until it did, and then once it did happen, it became the majority of the game. And what do they say? Federal, like, senators spend like 80% of their time fundraising.
Yeah.
While they're in office.
Oh yeah, if you walk out of the Capitol in D.C., right? There's a building over here and there's a building over here. Republicans walk out and they walk this way. Democrats walk out, they go this way, and they go to a building and they sit in a little cubicle and they do telemarketing.
Yeah.
Right? And these people then get to go on Fox News and act like they're big shit. And then get to go back to their offices in the Capitol and sit there with their feet up on the desk. But all they fucking are shills.
Right. The best. Right. They're the best. They're the best at selling. They're the best salespeople.
Yeah. But they do believe in what they're doing. Most people that are in politics really believe in this. I encounter a lot of people that say, bunch of crooks. Well, no, they're not a bunch of crooks. Okay? They really believe in what they're doing. The best ones are willing to get their hands dirty in order to get their ideological programs through.
Right.
I guess I just have too much pride to be able to really do that.
I don't. I mean, that's in a much smaller version of myself is like I hate the premise of trying to go out and sell ads for this.
Yeah.
Like I want to sell ads. I want to be able to sell ads. But I want people to call me up and be like, "Hey, here's $500. Run an ad for me." That's what I want.
Exactly.
And you know, maybe in time when I have enough customer base and somebody else does it once for funnies, and then it becomes a known thing, and then it's an easier sale. But like the idea of going out and being like, "Hey, I do this podcast thing, and it's about political politics, and you should sponsor my show," like that just grosses me out in all levels, and I have no desire to do that. I don't know. I think this is a good place to wrap it up. You got anything else you want to do before we call it a night?
I don't know, man. Like, I mean, I guess I said everything you need to say.
I'm sure you didn't, but
no, I'm sure I didn't. But
I mean, because again, like for me, in the grand scheme of things, I'm trying to figure out, you know, like selfishly, I suppose. Maybe I like to frame it in a selfless manner and say that it's. I believe what I'm trying to do is trying to ask the questions that nobody else is willing to ask, not in some hard, crazy way, but I think a lot of people are scared of politics. I think a lot of people are scared to try to get into it and try to understand what's going on because it's so big and so complicated, and there's so many people doing so many things at the same time that normal Joe going about his day, raising his kids, you know, doing sports after school, working, and all the different things that normal people go through. They don't, you know, the media as a whole doesn't do a very good job of breaking it down for people, which I don't do a very good job of either, but at least I don't have an agenda with what I'm doing. I'm trying to, but mostly, I guess the real important part is like I interrupted Becky Massey last time I talked to her to explain to me what some term is. I can't remember what the term is right now off the top of my head, but it's just one of those terms that when you're watching Fox News or whatever, that senators and congresspeople, they throw around all the time. It's just one of those terms. Like we did this with the bill, and it's like, what does it actually mean? Yeah,
like when I tried to get Evelyn Gill to explain equity to me. Yeah.
Right, but it's like, what does this mean? You know, and so like I had when I had McMahon on, I was like, what does living wage mean? Yeah. Hear that phrase all the fucking time. I don't know what that means. You know, what does living wage mean? And
to be fair, her answer was pretty cogent.
Right, and she pulled out this MIT thing and she sent it to me, which I shared with everybody. If you guys hadn't seen it, it's on the website. Check it out. And it's like, you know, it's got some data to it. And it's like, you know, there's been some research on it and this, that, and the other. It's like, okay, cool. That's a number that I can talk about. But the phrase living wage is so abstract that it can mean a bunch of different things to a bunch of different people, you know, where $15 is the number everybody's throwing out. But she's like, no, that's not accurate. It should be 22 or something like that, which whatever. That's that's an aside on how.
Yeah. When she started going down that list, I was waiting for, okay, I'm the one person that works in my family. I have 3 kids. Okay, so according to you, McMahon, I need like $46,000 a year.
Oh, more than that,
or something like that.
My house
it was a lot more than what I make.
Right, my house is 75, and it's 2 kids.
70.
Right, one working adult, 2 kids. So it's in I would assume it's in the 80s or 90s for your household by their metric.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, it's not to pick it apart a little bit, but the thing's skewed in a couple of ways because it's running off the assumption that the only thing you're getting from the job is pay, because it goes in there and starts talking about medical expenses and the cost of living portion of it. And it's like, well, you know,
and like I said, she made some good points.
Well, because I mean, but the thing about it is that if you're going to do that, you need to break it down. Then it's like, well, how much per hour is medical coverage for companies that give medical coverage? You know, how much are you going to calculate that into the per hour? especially, if you're a full-time employee, you're required to, like, blah, 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 blah. And anyway, point is, like I've interrupted some, somebody else, one of the commissioners, Beeler, I think I had on here, and service the debt, because we were talking about the baseball project. And he's like, this is how we're going to service the debt. And
you want to talk about the baseball thing?
We can, but to finish this story, at least, is that you got, that phrase, you hear service a debt all the time out of government people. And once it's explained to you, it's like, okay, that totally makes sense. But it's a mortgage. It's just a fucking mortgage, or it's rent, whichever version of it that makes more sense to you as a normal person. It's a mortgage or rent, whichever version of it is. That's what service a debt is, except it's the county and the city paying the mortgage and the rent on this thing. And, it's just like those things that I think that's one of the failures of media in general, is that they just assume that we all know these terms and phrases that get thrown out all the time. And it's like, if I'm the idiot dumb enough to ask the question, I'll ask the question.
I don't think it's that they assume that we know.
They don't care.
I think it's that they know that we don't know, and it's sort of like a neuro-linguistic programming.
Right. It's just yeah, and we just move on past that thing, and then nobody...
Like the word equity.
Right. Nobody's going to say, stop, hold on a second.
The word stakeholder, right? Like these things keep showing up now. And even like people that are supposed to be on the right, you hear them talking about equity. Like I said, I served on the Knox County Charter Review Committee, okay? And they put me, first of all, getting to sit on the dais. I know that, like, I'm a nerd about this shit, but being able to sit there where the city council and county commission sits, I was like
dork.
On cloud nine. Yeah,
full dork mode.
Yep, full dork mode. But I was sitting next to Evelyn Gill, who was the county commissioner at the time, and they could not have put me in a worse place. Right. We are so complete opposites, and I would just feel daggers from her coming out of her eyes. I introduced a proposal, which got argued down by the law director at the time, Bud Armstrong, who I voted against. I introduced a proposal to have language, at least to have a vote amongst the voters, to have language put in there that the county commission and Knox County government could not, when they were like bidding out contracts for like construction projects and stuff like that, that they couldn't take into account the race, religion, ethnicity, gender, so on
sexual
and so forth. It's
discriminatory
basically
terms,
equal opportunity employment language, right? She hated me for that.
Okay, so and then this is going to naturally push us into the baseball thing, because this is my newest thing on the baseball thing, that the community benefits agreement or whatever that is getting pushed around right now, that I don't like, that I didn't understand, and as I'm collecting an understanding of it, is like one of the things that's being pushed is like, a certain number of contractors have to be from the neighborhood. And it's like, that sounds good if you just say it flat out and don't think about it for more than 10 seconds. And I don't know, there could be plenty of good contractors for different specialties in the area. It's not a question of what exists there or not. But what that does is that gives whatever contractors that are down there a leg up on a job, not because they're good at it, not because they're cheaper than, none of the factors that most people would take into. But since we forced Boyd to agree to it, then we now have that. And it's like, how does, again, selfishness on my part, how does that benefit me that we're going to spend more money because we have to use certain contractors and not other ones?
What do you mean by certain contractors?
Well, the wording that I understand it of is that a certain percentage of the contractors are going to have to come out of the general vicinity of where the stadium's going. So that they're going to have to employ contractors to do a certain percentage of contractors. They may move back and forth between what the jobs are.
I have not seen this story that you're talking about. The last time I saw anything about this, which was not long ago, it was a News Sentinel article, and it was an interview. I don't know the guy's name, and I don't know the name of the organization that he runs. But the pull quote was, "I want to make sure that this benefits black people."
Right. Sure.
So is that what we're talking about?
I mean, essentially, I mean, that's what the illusion is. But I mean, at the same time, when you get down to the technicalities of the phrasing, is there's plenty of white-owned businesses up and down Magnolia.
True.
And it depends. I guess it depends on the official wording of it. But that's the thing. It's like, and it's not that I have an issue with a black contractor. It's just the assumption.
This city just passed a $100 million reparations bill.
Okay.
I mean, you can call it whatever you want, but that's what it is.
Okay.
You think that ain't gonna, like, that same spirit of the government is not going to prefer blacks over whites?
No, I think that is the implied outcome with the intent of these programs as spoken, as stated. And whether the abstraction that is the baseball stadium part of the issue or not. And it's like, I don't care. I don't care who does the job. If the city or county is hiring them for the job, they need to be able to do the job correctly at the best price we can get away with it at. Don't care other than that.
Which was my amendment.
Right. And that's how all projects should be. But I get some of the premise behind pushing things certain ways to correct previous errors or to assist in bringing up a community who's lacking for whatever reason. But I don't know how that I don't know how I say it out loud. I can see some benefits in that even for me, but it's an interesting. It's just I don't know that it is not the. I don't know what the program makes to make some of the past mistakes corrected is. I don't know that this is the right way to do it. I guess is the best way I could say it. Redlining was a thing. Things were things. Things happened in the past. They don't happen today. Not like they did.
Things happened back. Slavery was wrong.
Right.
But, we destroyed our entire continent having a war to abolish it. We all got set back to ground zero, especially the South. Like, why were there no battles in the North? Things were bad in the past. Why should, and here's where I become slightly libertarian, why should I have to pay for them now?
That would be a good phrasing of it, yeah. So anyway, baseball.
I don't have any beef with the baseball stadium. I have beef with preferred race characteristics to have, business owners in there and stuff. I like the idea of it not just being a baseball stadium, but, actually doing other things throughout the rest of the year outside of baseball season. My big beef is that I think it's just going to make Randy Boyd and a few of his friends a lot richer. And that is just rapacious capitalism. And I hate that just as much as I hate communism.
I mean, I agree that I think that there's a problem with one of the wealthiest men in Knoxville getting help that I couldn't get with my business. No shit. And that's been one of the things that a couple of the candidates in the city races have brought up in trying to change some of the TIF and pilot programs into smaller versions for smaller businesses and stuff like that. Because I think, just in a fairness stance, it's like, why, I get it. Like, I get why you're going to give, the Amazon one's not a good one, but like I don't know why this one's coming to mind, but Denso going into Maryville, and Maryville's going to do some stuff to get Denso to come in and hire 7,000 or 700 people, 1,000 people, however many people work at the Denso plant. I get why a government will want to support that move any way they can to get that many jobs for their locality, but you could do the same thing 100 times with 10 and 20 people employers and get the same number of people working.
And you would have small business, not local stuff,
right? And
people it's actually being empowered,
right? And on top of that, it's less risk. You have less chance of one of these bigger companies just deciding it's a flop and packing up and calling it a day and just abandoning the building or whatever that they don't own anyway because the city owns it or something like that. You have less issue with that because if you have 100 businesses doing it, you got bigger problems if 80 or 90 of your 100 businesses that you supported fail. You have bigger problems than paying off whatever loans and gifts or whatever you gave off to get those paid. Like if businesses are dying left and right, you got bigger issues than whatever the loans are that's going on with that.
Well, I mean, we're about to move past money. I mean, like, they're going to start sending me my house payment every month. Uncle Joe is going to just...
on a national...
I mean, like, people, some people got sick, and therefore they are sending me, $5,600 a couple of times a year. I mean, we're moving past money. There's no responsibility anymore. And there's no... ever since we're on a fiat system anyway, right? Since there's no, what is money? Money is a paper note that comes from a Federal Reserve Bank, which is a central bank that doesn't have anything to do with us, really.
Right. They're really good at helping screw us, but whatever.
Well, because we allow ourselves to be screwed.
I mean, of the 3 or 4 pillars of my branch of libertarianism, the Federal Reserve is top of the list of things we need to do something about.
Destroy it.
I mean, the
destroy it.
Yeah, and there's a lot of stuff on that,
and I don't even like the gold standard.
Okay.
It's better than the Federal Reserve, but
I mean, right. We can't just keep printing. That's just the bottom line. I mean, we can't keep printing at some level. I mean, yeah, but anyway, alas, and my thing with the baseball stadium is I don't particularly see any holes in the funding issues. Like, again, the libertarian in me was generally opposed to the idea of it, but as far as I can tell, I'm not paying a nickel unless I want to.
I like the idea of public investment in baseball stadium. Perfect example. I like the idea of public investment in a public utility recreation thing, right? But the way that it's being done, and the way that it has been done for decades, maybe hundreds of years, is what is going to happen, where we might get our baseball stadium, but you know what? It's really so Randy Boyd can make $10 million fucking dollars.
Right. For sure.
Right? And then he'll throw some, virtue signaling shit around, but it's really just so he can get a whole lot more fucking money.
Right.
Right? Fuck Randy Boyd. Fuck the Haslams. I mean, this is not... It's not right. It's not right. It's crumbs under the table. Right? It's a little pittance for the normal guy. And it's largesse. It's I will coin a term here. Fat cattery.
Fat cattery is a good term. I get it. It sells itself. You don't need to explain it.
Yeah.
Fat cattery. I mean, and I agree. And that to me, I'm on the same spot. It's like, assuming it works, it will have a positive effects for Knoxville, for residents of Knoxville. But as a compared percentage to the Boyd and his investment group and all the different people that are involved in that, for every, I don't know, let's say $100,000 that goes into the Knox County coffers and the city coffers and all that stuff as far as tax revenue generated off this new thing, even as assuming that it's new tax revenue to boot. For every $100,000 that gets into tax revenues off of this system, Boyd and his investment group are going to make $1 million each.
You know what? What they ought to do, look, quit with all the crony capitalism, okay? Very simple. Have a ballot measure. Do you support paying an extra $1 on property tax or whatever it works out to be to build this baseball stadium? Yes or no?
Right. I agree that I would like to see more ballot items of the like.
Oh, yeah.
I would like to see a lot of stuff more on ballot items. But I'd also like, and you were part of this, I suppose, that fucking ballot item about the law director.
You know
was
what?
Worded,
that's funny. Okay.
Was the most asshole-ish wording on the ballot that I've ever fucking heard of in my life.
Yes. That is why. That's one of the many reasons, but that is the primary reason that I say fuck Bud Armstrong. Fuck Bud Armstrong. Like I said, I'm going to be the most hated man in town after this.
And I will take the ratings. I told you the same thing.
It was in the... it was either in the Shopper News or the Knoxville Focus that I argued for and supported making it into an appointed position instead of an elected position. Now, I do agree that it should be an appointed position. Not everything should be elected. The county law director is the county government's lawyer. If I need a lawyer, I'm not going to go ask you and your wife and the guy down the road who I ought to hire for a lawyer. Right? And at the time, you had a situation where the county law director, Bud Armstrong, was suing the county government, his boss. Right? So I did, and I still do, think that that should be an appointed position. I never said anything about it publicly, and I want to say Knox Focus or either Shopper News, they reported that I vociferously voted for making it an appointed position, and that I was there and had an argument. I wasn't there. That vote took place on my birthday. I was passed out drunk in my recliner.
I mean, but even that you were
when that meeting happened.
But you're on charter review. You were on there to. I mean, all the charter items have to be balloted, right? Any charter changes?
It goes through the review process, as in like the one that I introduced. Okay, it got shut down and never even brought to a vote on the review committee.
Right.
Okay, but something that could have, such as Daniel Herrera's Second Amendment sanctuary thing.
Right.
That could go to a vote on the committee, and if it passed that vote on the committee, then it would be on the ballot.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So, but it has to go through Bud Armstrong first. It has to go through the county law director so he can figure out how to word it just right to make it all good and legal.
Right.
And so when they went, and he should have never been the law director anyway. I mean,
I didn't know what a law director was until the ballot item in question.
He was in correspondence school to get his law degree when he was running for law director. Right? He was basically Better Call Saul.
I mean, okay. I get what you're saying. I'm just saying, I think, but going back to some of the other issues that we've talked about before, it's like, I would argue that if you could do a solid poll and get enough Knox County residents on it, I would be surprised if 50% of respondents knew what a law director did.
Well, I mean, and here we go back to the first thing we talked about.
I mean, I think that's the issue at play.
That will wrap around. Most people out here on your street don't know what's going on because it's nonpartisan.
Well, because this is a county conversation. A ballot item is nonpartisan, I guess.
Well, I mean, it is, but
I'm just saying,
no, you kind of shut me down with that.
I'm just saying, the particular we're talking about.
I'll give you the point
because
here.
we spent a good chunk of time on a couple of different episodes trying to figure out what that ballot item was, and then what it actually meant by what box you checked. And I am 90%
take away the right of the voters.
I am 90% positive that Sam, one of the guys that does the big show with us, after those conversations, still voted yes, which was essentially voting no.
Bud Armstrong is an asshole. Okay? And
I mean, but Armstrong or not, that was some high bullshittery.
Here's what happened. He saw that amendment coming up, and he knew he was in law school, correspondence law school, while he was running for law director. Okay?
Okay.
And he beat Nathan Rowell. And Nathan Rowell was an actual lawyer who had recently moved here from Florida. And Bart Armstrong's whole thing was, he don't know Tennessee law. I'm a Tennessee, he's Florida.
Right.
Right? So, the Gators, bad. Right? So, Bud Armstrong sees this thing coming down the pike. And he decides, which is not incorrect, he's not stupid. He sounds stupid. I think he makes himself sound stupid. He's not stupid. He realizes that he got in by electioneering, not by merit.
Right.
Right? So he wants to make sure that his ass can stay in there.
Right.
Okay?
I mean, certainly. I mean, regardless of his realization of how he got in or not,
fucking rude to me.
The end of the day is that it was fairly clear at the time that the powers that be, the mayor's office specifically, didn't want him to be their law director. And
he was suing him.
Right. And if it came to an appointment, he was going to lose his job. So he had every right,
so then
every right, but at least every logical self-interest to make that stay elected.
Logical self-interest is not right.
I didn't say it was. I'm just saying, like, I can follow the logic in his head and into why it words that way, which was the most ridiculous thing ever. I screamed at Chris Davis about it. I was like, that's fine if that's the legalese, because that's what's going to replace the phrase in the charter that needs to be on the ballot. But we could have a commission. I hate the phrase, but we could put a little commission together that can layman terms that shit. We should have, this is what it's going to officially say, and then on the bottom in brackets, this is what actually happens when you say yes or no to this. That pissed me off. Like, that actually really upset me as a voter. Regardless of the history and the interaction going into it, like, that's just, I mean, that's
it should have made you mad as a voter.
Some bullshittery.
It is. It was, and it should have made you mad as a voter, right? And I'm just trying to tell you, like, why it happened,
right?
Like, how it happened, right? And for the record, despite what the Knoxville Focus has to say, I was not there.
Right.
I was at home on
Passed
my birthday,
on the recliner,
in my recliner,
and nothing finishes a show better than a drunken story. So, Dan Davis, I really appreciate you coming. This was a good time. Good. Dan Davis, everybody. That was fun. We learned things and history and bullshittery and fat cattery is the new word.
And now I'm ruined in local politics, so here we go.
We'll see. Maybe as the party moves, the way the party moves, things will come back around for Mr. Dan Davis. We're Almost in Agreement, almostinagreement.com, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. We are also available at almostinagreement@gmail if you want to send me an email. While you're at the website, almostinagreement.com, all the episodes are there, or all your favorite big major podcast providers are available there as well. Check us out, give us a like, share, all that good stuff, and help us grow, because, like I said, I was trying to make a layman's version of what the hell is going on around us, and I'll talk to anybody and everybody, try to get to the bottom of it. We're Almost in Agreement. Have a great night. We appreciate y'all listening.